Hey, Seuss, thanks for the reminder. I appreciate it, man. This is Mark Rogers TV. Of course, comparing the conferences, something that we do each and every off season. All right, I forgot the SEC and the Pac-12. How could I do that? Well, the Pac-12 has been a bit off the radar in regards to consideration for best conference the past couple of years. Rewind to 2014, 2013, especially that 14 season. Bama looked vulnerable. They lost in the college football playoffs. Oregon, before being demolished by Ohio State, appeared to be possibly the best team in the country. They annihilated Jameis Winston and company in the college football playoff semifinal. And, of course, the Pac-12 just looked so strong top to bottom that there was some argument. And I played out the games, not just theoretically, but the results of the out-of-conference games, a series that I'm doing elsewhere right now. And the Pac-12 at 13-6 against the other four leagues played the best that season. But unfortunately, the way college football works many times, the Pac-12 and the SEC, the two best conferences a few years ago, didn't even play. Okay, what would happen if they played seeding for seeding? So these are not my seedings. These are the seedings, the standings in the SEC and the Pac-12 based on conference record, head-to-head, and then overall record. Of course, Alabama is number one in the SEC, and Washington, the top dog, yes, the Huskies in the Pac-12. I think we've seen this game. Alabama dominated in many facets. However, remember an awful pick six. Remember two turnovers around midfield in which the Huskies defense limited Bama, didn't allow them to score 5 consecutive trips inside the 50. Also that Washington certainly coughed up the ball at midfield that led to an Alabama score. It was a 17-7 game into the third quarter. Yes, Alabama was clearly the better team, but they're playing 10 times and they're playing 5 home-and-home games. 5 games in Seattle. I think Washington ekes out 2 wins. All right, Florida, Colorado. I was not impressed with the Buffs, and I'm not trying to make too much of this, but I've stated this a number of ways in speaking to the Pac-12 narrative over the past several weeks, is that Colorado is not a 2 seed. I completely congratulate Mike McIntyre and what he accomplished this season in getting the Buffs to the Pac-12 championship game and the Alamo Bowl, but we saw them lose badly to Washington and Oklahoma State. That game against the Cowboys, they were dominated as much or more than any team in bowl play. If you compare that output against what Ohio State did against Clemson, Ohio State was athletically close to Clemson at least. They just had an off night, was part of it. But anyway, back to this. Colorado was clearly not in Oklahoma State's class, couldn't cover them downfield, was physically manhandled at the line of scrimmage. Florida dominates this series 7-3. Auburn and USC. Well, the Trojans, I think the consensus would say, probably the most talented team in the Pac-12. And we're basing this on 2016 results and 2016 teams. So consider that these teams are fully equipped with all their NFL draft prospects coming back to play. They're suiting it up one more time. And that they're fully healthy. And that's going to come into play later. Okay. USC Auburn, would love to see this series, but Auburn not enough firepower to win consistently. USC 7-3. LSU's just so much more dominant than Washington State. We saw the Cougars lose to Minnesota in the Holiday Bowl. We saw them lose badly down the stretch. LSU wins this 8-2. And just because Luke Falk and his receiving core is so lethal and LSU can go into a shell at times offensively, would it be 8-2? Tennessee Stanford might be the best matchup on the board. This would be a tremendous series. Stanford, I'm giving the nod, so I've got a couple 5-5 series. I've got to not bail out on those. So I'm giving Stanford the edge, but it's a 5-5 series. Georgia, Utah, this would be interesting as well. I would love to see this series. We saw that Utah down the stretch just limited offensively. They should have lost to Indiana in the Foster Farms Bowl. Missed field goal or otherwise they most likely lose to Indiana. Georgia's a better team, more talented, slightly. Good series, 6-4. Kentucky, Oregon State probably the upset of the seedings, not just in the Pac-12, but overall, making it up to, what is that, a 7 seed? And keep in mind, we've got 14 teams in the SEC and 12 in the Pac-12, so we had to lose 2 SEC squads, so we did that fairly. We kept 4, we lost the team. We kept 4, we lost the team. We kept the bottom 4. So out is Texas A&M and Mississippi State, the 5 and 10 seeds. But Oregon State seeded too high, but that's what the standings read. They went to 4 and 5 in the conference. They went 5 and 7 overall. All right, Arkansas, Cal. Arkansas would beat up Cal physically in 10 games. Hogs win at 7-3. South Carolina, Oregon. Interesting series here. We can't think of the Ducks over the past 10 years. We can't think of that Oregon team. That was not the Oregon team that showed up. But we get Royce Freeman back healthy. Yes, they still have some holdover explosiveness from those great teams of 12, 13, and 14. South Carolina, though, an SEC defense. Jake Bentley, over 10 games, what the development would be for him. Continued 5-5, Ducks get the edge. Arizona State, Vandy. Arizona State with a little bit more firepower. And Kyle Shermer, though, found a passing game late in the season. This would be a pretty good matchup at 5-5. Okay, this is the misseeded game right here in all of college football. Ole Miss and UCLA as 11 seeds. They're much better than that. So envision Ole Miss with Chad Kelly and the rest of his team intact. The team that played Florida State and led them by 4 scores in the opener. The team that took Alabama to the wire. They're playing UCLA. The Bruins with Josh Rosen. They lost a lot of personnel during the course of the season as well, and really didn't get beat badly by anyone except USC. Ole Miss wins a very good series, a series that belongs in this range, probably on the Tennessee-Stanford line. Ole Miss wins at 6-4. Reb's just a little bit more talented, more explosive. Yeah, I'm going with the SEC here, 6-4. Missouri, Arizona. Arizona showed us more on offense against better opponents. They took Washington to an overtime game. Wildcats win at 6-4. So total it up, it's SEC 70 and Pac-12 50. What does this prove? Nothing. That's my opinion on if these teams played 10 times. We're not playing Alabama and USC. They did play. That would be a really good series, I think. Now we're not playing a number of matchups. So those are the seedings. Those are my thoughts. We do this as just kind of a fun thing and to throw it out there for you and get your thoughts right here on Mark Rogers TV.